Hi, everybody. My name is Vidhi Kapoor, and I am your tutor for audit and assurance. So, before we start with the subject, I'll just give my quick introduction. So, I'm an ACCA finalist, and I am working at KPMG, and it's been more than 1.5 years that I have been working under data analytics and auditing team at KGS. And along with that, I have also taught AA students. I was working at IMS prior to joining my KPMG, and I have mentored more than 100 students over there for ACCM. So yeah, this was a bit about me. Now moving on to our main concern, that is audit and assurance. So this paper of the skill level is F8, and this paper is slightly different to that of the other skill level examination. Why am I saying this? Why is it different? Why does this paper has a lower passing percentage to that of the other skill level exams? And what should be your strategy during the examination, while the preparation and in the exam? So everything will be covered in my session. So if you feel that you have any query, you have the chat box available to you. So please drop down any questions that you have. Seriously, by any I mean, even if you think that the question is silly and you have a doubt that you should be raising it in the class or not, just write it in the chat box. You also have the option to send it to me directly on the chat, or you can share it with everyone. But please write the doubt, and I will be explaining that to you. No matter what, I'll be addressing all the doubts in the session itself. So please make use of the chat box, and the unmute option is not available to you guys. But yes, you can write your queries in the chat box. And also at the end of the session, I'll be having a Q&A session wherein you can ask questions related to anything about ACCA or anything related to the subject. If you have any generic doubt, ask in the Q&A session. If you think if there is any topic that I'm teaching to you, and if you have any doubt, then just write it in the chat box then and there, and I'll be addressing your doubts simultaneously. Okay. So this was about the class. Now just give me a second, please. I'll share my screen. And before starting with audit and assurance, I want you guys to understand what the paper pattern is, what the requirement of the paper is, because before jumping into the syllabus, it is very important to understand what the requirement of the examiner is. Especially in auditing, students consider that it is a theoretical paper, so you can maybe mark up the concept, or at the end, you'll just read the answers and just write it in your own words. No, that's not going to happen. This paper is different. And why did I say it different? Because in other skill level examination, for those of you, if this is your first skill level examination, obviously I'll be telling you what needs to be done and how you have to do it. But for those of you who have already attempted, and I think mostly people would have attempted any other skill level examination before that. If not, then also you do not have to worry. I'll be teaching everything from scratch. Okay. So, if you have attempted other skill level exams, you or any knowledge level, you might be familiar uh, that in the paper we have objective type questions. What do I mean by objective type questions? That in the paper we have MCQs, and under the MCQs, we have the option of maybe selecting two options or a drop down, or match the following one word, or sometimes you are asked to select multiple options out of three or four options that are available to you. So these are all the questions that were a part of the objective type questions that were there. But these objective type questions were tested as an individual question. That means that was not related to any case study or anything. each and every question that was tested under the objective type under section A, if you know, was individual. But in audit and assurance, this paper is also again for 100 marks, and the passing marks is 50% for all the ACC exams. Okay. So under this 100 marks, this is bifurcated into two sections: 70% subjective and 30% as objective. So now, as in other skill level examination, you had majority of the portion as objective. This exam has 70% subjective area. That means 70% of the paper you will have to type it, and the remaining 30% will be related to certain case. I'll be explaining the exam format and in a while, but yeah, this paper is different to the other skill level exam. And why is it different? Because of the paper pattern that it has and the exam approach. Other skill level exams, you do have 50% practical, 50% theory, but this is 100% theoretical paper. Theoretical paper doesn't mean that you have to rote learn the concepts. Theoretical paper, uh, this is an application based paper. So you need to understand the requirement of the examiner before even starting with the paper or starting studying for the examination. Because at times, one of the major reasons that I believe, and even in the examiners comments, in examiner's report it is mentioned that students tend to fail this exam because they are not understanding what is being asked from them, and they are just delivering what they feel should be written in the exam. So this expectation gap is a major reason that the students are not able to clear the exam. Okay, so now through our classes we'll be trying to cover that up. This expectation gap needs to be fulfilled for you to pass the exam. Okay. So make sure you attend all the classes. And while you are attending the class, at the end, I'll be telling you guys what needs to be done from your end. Because if I am explaining the concepts, if I'll be and definitely in class I'll be taking up past paper questions whatsoever is available for the relevant topic. I'll be explaining that in the class, how you have to prepare the answer, how you have to think, what are the marks available. I'll be breaking everything down to you in the class itself. So all you have to do is, I'll be, because I know some of you might be working and some of you might be full-time students, so I'll be telling you guys how you have to prepare for it. Okay. And once we are done with the syllabus, we'll also have three mock papers that will be conducted from our end, and I'll be evaluating each and every mock paper of yours and providing you um, personalized feedback for the same, and also taking up your queries about if there is any weaker topics. I'll be mentioning that in the feedback. So make sure you attend the classes, you attempt the mock, and you'll be able to clear this exam with flying colors in the first attempt itself. Okay. So before we start with audit insurance, we need to understand the exam format, and then I'll be explaining to you why is this paper important? Why did altogether are we studying this exam? What is audit? What is assurance? And why do we need it? Why are we actually studying it as a part of our ACCA curriculum? I'll be explaining everything down in today's session, and we'll be also starting with one of the topic. I believe that we might not be able to do a past paper question in the first class itself, but definitely I will be explaining a topic to you. And if you feel there is any question related to that, or if anything is not clear, or you feel my speed is a little faster and you want me to go a little slower, or anything like that, any feedback that you have, please write it in the chat box and I'll be addressing it then and there. Okay. So without further ado, let's get started. I've already given my introduction, so we'll be moving on to the exam format. So under the exam format, what we have is there are two sections of the paper. Section A, that is the objective part, contains 30 marks. And these 30 marks, in the examination, you will have it for broken down into three questions. So these questions are OTQs. OTQs means objective type question. And these objective type questions are task based. Okay, what do I mean by that? For instance, in question one will be of 10 marks. Okay. And you will be provided a scenario or a case study for this 10 mark. And based on that, you will be asked five MCQ questions. Okay. So per question, you will be awarded 2 marks. Okay. So these MCQ questions can be dropped down, one word, true or false, match the following, anything like that. Okay. So in the examination, in objective type questions, you are not tested an individual question, if you see. In other skill level of examination, what you used to have was you have individual MCQ questions that you had. But in this exam, we do not have that. We have a case study allotted to us, and based on those case studies, we have to answer these MCQ questions. A lot of time what happens in the examinations, because students are in a hurry to complete their paper and they are attempting 70 marks of the paper first, or maybe the students are not able to manage their time, they end up not reading the scenario and just attempting the MCQ, thinking that they have understood the question and they are able to answer it. So they think that they have answered it correctly, but because of the scenario, there's a huge possibility that your answer might be incorrect because you are not aware about what is actually going in the organization, what actually the case is, how the auditor has to respond to it. You might not be aware about it until unless you do not read the scenario. So make sure that if you are, obviously you will have to attempt section A as well. If you are attempting it, you read the scenario, and o- only and only if you are able to manage your time, you will be able to do that. How will you manage your time? That is by practicing. And how do we have to practice it? On CB practice platform. Some of you might be aware with what CB practice platform is, and for those of you who are new and who do not have any idea about CB practice platform, it is basically a platform that is provided to you by ACCA on your My ACCA account under the qualification section. Under CBA practice platform, you will have separate or individual exam of for all of the exams of ACCA. You'll be provided with a blank workspace, past paper questions to practice, specimen and practice exams. So that's a very useful space to practice your questions, because at times what happens is students tend to practice their questions on Excel or worksheet, basically the word processor. And what happens is there are a lot of features or shortcuts that are available to us on Excel and Word, whereas these features are not provided by ACCA. There are certain different things that certain different tools that we are able to use, but we are not able to use those other shortcuts or the advanced shortcuts. So, if you have to practice for the exam, make sure you practice on CB practice platform, because at the end of the day, you are writing the exam on the tool that is provided to you by ACCA, right? So practicing over there will increase your speed because their system is a bit slow also, and there are a lot of features that are not available. So that will be a complete exam practice that you'll be able to do. Okay. How do we have to go to CB practice platform? I will be covering each and everything in the class. But before we do that, let's understand the exam format. Okay. So 30% is your objective portion and 70% of the paper is your subjective area. So under 30%, we'll have three questions. These are three case studies that will be provided to you. Each case study will be of 10 marks each. And the case study will have five MCQ questions. So one MCQ is for 2 marks. And these MCQ questions should be answered based on the scenario. So you will have to read the case study first, and then only you'll be able to answer the question. Okay. So this was about your section A. In section B, what we have is we have three long questions. So section A, the subjective portion contains 70 marks. That means typing speed plays a very crucial role, because if you are not able to complete the exam, definitely there is a huge risk of you not passing the exam. So, so make sure you attempt 100% of the paper, and you will be only able to do that if you are practicing it. It's not a paper wherein you can just blabber and blabber. You will be only awarded marks if you are writing a relevant point. You do not have to write long answers or essays. No, you do not have to write stories. If a question is of 5 marks, just write 5 points. The examiner is not even going to read the sixth point. Make sure you write relevant points. And only if you are listening to the classes carefully, only if you are able to understand the concept and apply it to the scenario, because these will be the application based questions that will be given to you in the exam. So if you are able to do that, then only you will be able to attempt the paper. Okay. And yeah, so we'll have three questions here over here. The first question will be of 30 marks, and the second and third question will be of 20 marks each. Okay. What will be tested in these questions? How will it be tested exactly? I will be covering that also in future classes. So make sure you do not miss any of those. Because in the class itself, I'll be telling you how you have to attempt the paper, what is tested, what is not tested, how you have to uh, go throughout the syllabus. I'll be covering everything. So make sure you attend all of the classes. Okay. So yeah, this was it about the exam format. Moving on, we have the plan for today. So in today's session, we'll be understanding what audit and assurance is, and then I'll be starting with one of a very important topic and a very favorite topic of the examiner, that is substantive procedure. This might be a little heavy topic, but I'll make sure that I'm able to explain that to you in the session. This topic is quite long, and why am I starting this at the first instance? Because I want you to understand about the procedures and how auditing actually works in the real scenario. So I'll be covering each and everything: what audit is, why is it relevant, why are we doing substantive procedures. Everything will be covered in today's session. And once we are done with that, I'll be starting with each of the substantive procedures. So basically, substantive procedure is approximately tested for 17 marks in the exam. It varies from 15 to 17 marks. So out of 100, 15 to 17 marks can be awarded from substantive procedure. So this is obviously in ACCA you cannot predict the examiner, but at the same time, as per the past trends, that this is one of a very important topic. So make sure you have the conceptual clarity, because if you just open the study text, we have plenty of points available. This would be the longest chapter that you would see, but you do not have to learn those points. This is an application based exam, so that means you will have to understand about the paper, understand about the question, and write it in your own words. In your own words, also, you need to understand. In today's session only, that will be clear to you, that we have to write certain words, we have to make use of certain things, we have to address certain issues. Then only we'll be able to fulfill the requirement of the examiner. Because if the examiner is not satisfied, you wouldn't be awarded marks, right? Okay. So in the session, we'll be also covering past paper questions. So whenever I'm teaching, if I'm explaining a concept to you, I will be simultaneously doing a past paper question if it is available, so that you are able to understand how do we attempt it in the exam. Okay. So I'll be telling you as a student, from a student perspective also, what information do we use, and from a tutor perspective also, that how or on what basis are you being judged and marks are being awarded. Okay. So I'll be covering all of that up, and in the last we'll have a Q&A session. So let's start with the topic for today, that is substantive procedure. But before we do that, we need to understand what audit is. So just allow me a moment, please. Mm, yeah. So firstly, we need to understand what audit is. Why are we actually studying this subject? We need to understand before starting a subject, why is this subject important? Why are we even doing it? Right? So basically, what happens is that just an instance, this is a company. Let's say it is company X. Sorry, yeah, this is company X, and I have money with me. So one day I was wondering that I have money with me and I want to invest my money. So I decided to invest it in company X. So I invested 30% in shares. So now, if I'm investing my money in company X, that means that I am the shareholder of the company, right? I am the owner of the company. And being the owner of the company, I will be asking them that, hey, I've invested my money. So in return, I'll be receiving something. And the return is the profit share, right? Um, so basically, the profit share will be received in the form of dividends. Okay. So what I have done is I had money with me. I have the capital with me and I have invested that amount. Okay. And I am not the person who is running the company. Company is being run by, so company X is basically will be run by whom? The directors. Directors are the person who run the company, and shareholder is the person who has invested money, who has invested his capital into the company. Okay. So, being directors, my motive would be to maximize my own wealth. And what is my wealth? I'll be trying to maximize my salary. Whereas being a shareholder, if I am investing my money, I would want to maximize my wealth, right? So that gives rise to conflict of interest. What do I mean by conflict of interest here? Conflict of interest simply means that directors want that they should have more of their salary, whereas the shareholders would want that their wealth should be maximized. And shareholders are receiving return from the profits. So, if more salary is being paid to the directors, that means profit will be reduced. And if profits are reduced, the shareholders' wealth will be reduced, right? So, that is why there is a conflict of interest. And at times, the directors might manipulate the financial statements. So the shareholders have trust issues. So shareholders want certain level of surety, certain level of assurance that if I am investing my money, that money is safe with the other person. The directors are investing my money into the projects in which they were supposed to invest in, and what are the returns that I am receiving, whether they're concealing anything from me, whether there is anything that should be known to me, everything the shareholders want to know. And being directors will obviously try. Obviously, they'll be showing everything, they'll be reflecting everything, but there is also a possibility that they have manipulated the accounts, or they might have window dressed it. Okay, so what happens is there comes in picture the role of the auditor, the role that we all are gonna perform it in future, right? So auditor is an independent person that is appointed by the shareholder. And what does he do is he checks the financial statements, he looks at them, he gains evidences, and provides surety to the shareholders, yet that yes, whatever work has been done by the directors, whatever financial statements that they have prepared, whatever is being reflected is true and fair or not. So auditor is a person who gives his or her opinion on the financial statement, that whether the financial statement is true and fair or not. And how did the auditor give this opinion? Based on the evidences. And substantive procedure is one of the way to gain those evidence. Okay. So this whole process is auditing. Auditor is a person who is being appointed by the shareholder, and he tends to perform certain procedures and provide opinion on the financial statements, that is the balance sheet, profit and loss, cash flows, and anything and everything that is happening in the organization. The auditor gives an opinion, and this whole process is known as audit. Okay. So why are we doing audit? Basically to provide surety to the shareholders, to the current shareholders, to the potential investors, because what previously used to happen was there was no regulatory authority, or there wasn't any proper way to manage these things. And in that case, there were a lot of frauds that has happened in the past. This is why, if we take an example of India, we have SEBI, and SEBI regulates everything. Okay. So here also, um, now we have, it is actually the requirement that audit, especially for big companies, that audit is mandatory. Even for small companies, audit is done now. Because if you have to get yourself listed, and if you want to give your shares to the public, definitely you have to um get yourself audited. You have to get your company audited. Then only you'll be able to get the listing requirements met, and then only you'll be listed. Okay. So basically, all the companies which are issuing shares to the public, they get their audit done. And in terms of big companies, they definitely get it. They mostly, I would say, get it done from the big fours like KPMG or Deloitte. Okay. So yeah. So this was about audit, that what audit is. So moving on to the topic for today's session, that is substantive procedure. So basically, what is substantive procedures? As I told you, that the auditor tries to gain sufficient evidences, right? So the auditor is performing certain procedures. So substantive procedure is also an audit procedure being performed by the auditor to gain sufficient evidences. And why are we gaining these evidences? To support, to basically provide an opinion on the financial statements. Because if I am giving an opinion on something, I should have something backed up. I can't give an advice. Basically, it's not a free advice that I'm giving, I'm charging. That means that if I am giving an opinion, it needs to be backed up by evidences. If I'm saying that this company is wrong, this company is doing a fraud, then I should have proof of it. I just can't say anything about the company just based on certain grudges that I hold. No, I can't do that. Okay. And what is my goal here? To detect material misstatement. What do I mean by misstatement? For instance, you have a receivables of 1 lakh in the balance sheet. Okay. In the SOFP, you have 100,000 receivables that were reflected. And who prepares the financial statements? The directors of the company, the ones who are running the company. Okay. So what happened here is, when I was performing my audit, during the course of my audit, when I was performing the audit procedures, I saw, or when I tested it, that the receivables were just 70,000. Whereas in the financial statement, it is being showed as 100,000. So there is a 30K difference that is there, right? So this is a misstatement. Okay. So if there is any misstatement, if the misstatement is material, here comes the concept of materiality. What it is, I'll just explain it to you in layman terms. And then, as and when we'll be progressing with the syllabus, I'll be breaking down each and every term to you. Okay. So, material is basically means something that is huge, something that is going to affect me. Okay. And that, to be honest, the materiality limit is quite subjective and depends from business to business. How do we determine it? Everything will be covered in under different portion of the syllabus. So we'll be doing it then. So as of now, as I was saying, that there's a difference of 30,000. So that means being an auditor, I need to have a professional skepticism mind. What do I mean by professional skepticism? That I have to question if there is anything that is wrong and I feel that there is something suspicious, then I'll have to question the directors. I'll have to question the management that why is there a particular thing that is being reflected? Okay. So what happens is, why are we performing the why are we performing these substantive procedures? Because my goal is to detect if there is anything misstated, if there is anything wrong. And if there is, then I will ask the directors that why is there a difference of 30,000 and whether that difference is justified or not, or and I'll be trying to gain evidence for the same. Okay. If the difference is justified, I'll ask them, I will consider that. If it is not justified, I'll ask them to remove it or maybe make an adjustment for the same. And if they don't do it, I'll change my opinion on the financial statement. I'll say that they're not doing that. And there's something that is wrong that is going on with the company. Okay. So these misstatements can either be by fraud or by error. So what does this mean? That just an instance, if there is a 30,000 difference and the management genuinely intentionally recorded 30K receivables extra just to overstate their asset, just to window dress their financial statements, just to overstate their financial statements, then this is a fraud that is being committed by the company. If by chance, if by error, if there was an unintentional act that by mistake, because we all are humans, it can happen that by mistake that I haven't recorded something or I incorrectly recorded something. So if that's the case, we can definitely ask them to change that or make an adjustment or ask for an evidence. But if it is intentionally done by the management, then if it is fishy, then we'll question it, we'll change our opinion. Okay. Sorry for that. I'll just plug in my charger. Please allow me a moment, please. Yeah, so that's it for substantive procedures. So I hope that is clear to you. If not, just let me know in the chat section. If you want me to repeat anything, I'll do that for you. Okay, so just a quick glimpse into what we did. We did what is auditing and why do we have to do it, and then we did what is substantive procedure. So moving on now to the next topic. Actually, we'll be doing substantive procedure in bits and pieces so that you are able to understand the whole sole purpose of it and you are able to form the procedures yourself. Because if you'll try to learn these procedures, there are seriously plenty of procedures that will be there. And if you learn it, you won't be able to score any marks in the exam because you have to write specific procedure which is asked in the exam rather than writing generic points. Okay. So moving on uh to the next topic we have is assertion. So basically, what assertion is? Assertion simply means the claims of the management. So what do we mean by the claims of the management? As I told you that the management, the directors are the ones who are preparing the financial statements. So if there is the financial statement that is prepared, what do I mean by financial statement here? The balance sheet and the profit and loss account. So if we are preparing or if we have prepared the financial statements, by we I meant the if the management has prepared the financial statements, then there are certain claims that the management is making. Management hasn't explicitly come and said you, but if they have stated certain things in the financial statement, it means that that exists. They do not have to come and confirm it to us. It means that they have stated that, yeah, this is it from our end. Just an example, if in the balance sheet it is written cash and cash equivalent as 2 million. Okay. What does that mean? To that this 2 million exists with, and this is the amount that the management has. So this is a certain claim that the management is making. They have just written this amount in the balance sheet. They have not come and told you that. But this is something which is implicit. Okay. So basically, assertion means that these are some claims that the management makes. So if we break down the financial statements, it is in two parts. That is the balance sheet and profit and loss. Under balance sheet, these are the assertions that the management make. First is existence. As I gave you an example of cash and cash equivalents, existence means that if in the balance sheet, the um, under current assets, the management has shown that we have cash and cash equivalents of 2 million. That means 2 million cash exists with the management. This is something that they are claiming. They are not just coming and telling that to you, but if they are reflecting that amount, that means that cash exists. If being an auditor, I want to test it, what can I do? I can just go and check in the bank account or in the cash form or in checks in any of the form. Do they have 2 million that exist with them or not? Okay. So this is one of the claim that the management made. Then next we have is valuation. By valuation, what do we mean here? Valuation means that the value of the asset or the value of the liability that is being reflected in the financial statement in the balance sheet is true. It is not over or understated. Okay. So whatever value we are recording our assets or at whatever value we are recording our liabilities in the balance sheet, that means that the value is true and fair. We are not under or overstating these values. We are not manipulating the accounts. This is what the management is claiming. Then next we have is completeness. Completeness means that whatever is being shown in the financial statements, whatever is being shown in the balance sheet, the management claims that yes, we have completely recorded the transaction. If there is a debit, there is a particular credit for the same. We are not missing on to anything. We haven't missed out on anything. We have completely recorded the transaction. That's what they mean. Lastly, we have rights and obligation. If there is an asset that is shown in the balance sheet, what does that mean? That we have the rights on that asset. We have the right to use that asset. It doesn't, uh, if there is an asset that you have, it necessarily doesn't mean that you have the ownership of the asset. Even if you have the control of the asset, as you might have studied in your F7, if you have a long-term lease, something like that, if you have the right to use this asset, if you have the right of that asset, then only you are showing that asset in the financial statement. It's not that you are showing someone else's asset in your balance sheet as an asset. No, asset is something that is gonna benefit you. You have that right of that asset, then only you'll be recording it. And similarly for the obligations, what we have is obligation simply means Just an example, if you are showing a particular liability in your financial statements. So if you are showing this liability, that means it is your obligation, it is your responsibility that you have to pay off this liability. It can be within 12 months, more than 12 months, that doesn't matter. But yeah, it is your responsibility to pay off that liability, and that is why it is shown under the SOFP. Okay. Next we have is statement of profit and loss. Under statement of profit and loss, there are certain assertions that the management make. Okay, so these were for the balance sheet that the management make these claims. They're not they're not explicitly coming and telling it to you. But yeah, if they are reflecting certain things in the financial statement, that means these are the certain claims that the management has made. Okay, under SOPL, firstly, we have completeness. Completeness again means the same that under profit and loss, if they are reflecting anything, that means that the transaction that they have shown as an expense or an income is completely recorded. They are not omitting anything by error, or maybe they are not manipulating the accounts. This is what the management is claiming on that. Okay. Next we have is occurrence. Occurrence means the transaction that has occurred during the year has been recorded. For instance, I made sales of $1 million during the year. That means if I have made this sales during the current year and it relates to the current year, then I'm going to record this occurred during the year. That means I have to record it in my as my income in my profit and loss. Okay, regardless of the fact I have received $1 million in my bank or not, that doesn't matter. If my sales criteria is fulfilled, if I have met the criteria, if it has to be recognized as a sales for the current year, that means if a transaction has occurred during the year, I'll be recording it. Okay. Next we have is cutoff. Cutoff simply means is just an example that my year started on 1st Jan and ended on 31st December. Okay. So, what happens is whatever transaction that relates to my accounting period, I am taking that into consideration. Okay. I will be recording whatever transaction that I have during the year. Um, for instance, I had a prepaid rent of 10,000 in the previous year. Okay. So this prepaid rent is relating to my current year. So in my current year, I'm gonna record it. Whatever relates to my accounting period, whatever relates to my current year, I am going to record it regardless of the fact I have paid for it or I have received it. It doesn't matter. Even if the amount is outstanding, it doesn't matter. You have received it, you have paid for it. Mhm. If it is relating to your current year, whether it is an expense or an income, you are going to record it. Okay. Lastly, we have classification. Classification means that you have you cement that that the management have correctly recorded, correctly classified the transaction. For instance, if I purchased a machinery, okay, so now you guys tell me, is it a revenue expenditure or capital expenditure? Capital expenditure. How are we able to classify it? Because revenue expenditure is something, an expense that is recurring in nature. Example, rent. An expense that is recurring in nature. I have to pay that expense again and again and again and again. Then it is revenue expenditure. Capital expenditure means if it is a one-off expense. Machinery, I'm not going to purchase it every day. I'm not going to purchase it every year or every month, right? So this is a one-time huge investment that I'm making, then it is a capital expenditure. So if it is a capital expenditure, then it is recorded as an asset. If it is revenue expenditure, then it is shown under profit and loss, right? So if there is anything that is shown under your profit and loss, that means that the management is claiming that they have classified the expense or classified the income correctly. They haven't manipulated the accounts. They have correctly recorded the expenses or income, whatever is there. Okay. Lastly, we have accuracy. Accuracy means whatever amount is being reflected in the expenses or income is accurate. Okay. So, just an instance, depreciation. It is a calculation, right? If we have 100,000 dollars of machinery and 10% is the depreciation charge, then that means 10K. So I've correctly, accurately recorded it. It's not that I'm recording just 8,000 as depreciation. No, I have accurately recorded it. So this is also one of the claim that the management is making. They are not explicitly coming and claiming that, but if they have recorded in the financial statement, that's what it means. Being an auditor, this is what we have to use our professional judgment in. Being an auditor, you have to have a professional skepticism mind. That means if there is anything suspicious that you feel, if there is anything questionable that you feel, you have to go back to the client, you have to go back to the management and confirm it from them. Secondly, you have to have a professional judgment. Here also, this is professional judgment after all. What do we mean by that? um if in the if we are given the financial statements, this is what we are gonna presume after looking at the financial statements, that whatever they are stating is accurate. Whatever they are stating is accurate, whatever they are stating is complete, whatever they are stating relates to our current accounting period, whatever they are stating is correctly classified. This is what they are saying, and now we will be testing it to confirm what they are saying is right or not. And that is why we are performing the substantive procedures. I hope now that makes sense to you guys. If not, then just let me know. I'll explain that to you again. Okay? I hope this is not too much for you guys for the first class, but I'm trying to break it into simpler portions. Last 10 minutes left, guys. Please bear with me. Okay. So now next we have is key components. Under substantive procedures, I just want you to understand few terminologies before we move on to any of the question from past paper or any of the topics, okay? Because in substantive procedures, our main focus will be practicing questions. Based on that, you will be understanding what you have to write. And then you'll be understanding the concepts, because sometimes when I'll be doing the question, then you'll be understanding, oh, this is how it is supposed to be done. Oh, this is how the concept is. This is how it relates to the real world. Then you will be able to catch that up. Okay. If I will be just reading some pointers out, you'll not be able to understand. Okay. So I'm just breaking down certain terminologies so that if in future that those are being used, you are able to understand it. So certain terminologies like test of transaction or detail. Test of transaction or detail means if we are examining any individual transaction, whether it is accurately recorded in the financial statement, then we are doing test of transaction or test of detail. For instance, in the financial statement, I have receivables of 2 million. So if I am testing an individual transaction that is receivables of 2 million, that it is accurately recorded that in the financial statement, it is accurate or not. If I'm testing that, then means what am I doing? Test of transaction or test of detail. And in question, if it is written analytical procedures, if we are testing the financial data, if we are comparing the financial state data to the industry, or to the past year trends, then it is analytical procedure. I'll just give you an example. In F7 or in F3, you might have, or if you haven't given any of the exam in class 12th, you used to calculate ratios. If you, if I have GP margin of, let's say, 20%, and the industry GP margin is 25%. If I am comparing my percentage to that of the industry, or if I am comparing my results to that of my prior year, I'm observing the trends, whether there is anything unusual. Sometimes what happens is, I'll just give an example. Um, my sales was 10 million in the last year, and this year it was 200 million. There is a huge jump which has never happened. So this is something that, have we recorded the transact have the management manipulated their accounts? Is it genuine, or what is the possible reason for this huge fluctuation? So this all is analytical procedures. So in simple terms, if you are individually testing the transaction, whether it is accurately recorded in the financial statement, then it is test of detail or transaction. If you are comparing the financial data, that means gross profit margin or revenue figures, or uh, what do we say, return on capital employed, net profit margin, operating profit, whatever it is, if you are comparing the financial data with the industry or with your prior year performance, in order to understand about if there is any unusual trend or fluctuation that is happening, then it is analytical procedures. So these were the two terms that I wanted you guys to understand. I hope this is okay for you. If not, just let me know through the chat box. Okay. Next, we have, how do we write a substantive procedure? In today's session, we'll not be doing any question, but yes, I'll be explaining or briefing it down to you how in the exam, if there is any question that is given to you for substantive procedure, what what are you supposed to do? So this is going to be the last thing that we are going to do it for today. And from tomorrow, we'll be starting from the same slide. That is, I'll be repeating this, and then I'll be moving on to the question so that you are with me. Okay. So uh, how do we write a substantive procedure? I was giving you an example that if there is a substantive procedure question for 5 marks, you have to write 5 points. You do not have to write any extra point. Even if you write an extra point, you wouldn't eh, neither the examiner is going to read it, neither you are going to get any marks awarded for the same. So please write the points which you are sure of. Okay. So for instance, for one point, obviously you have 1 marks available. So this 1 mark is bifurcated into 3 parts. How did I bifurcate it? Based on the examiner's report. So when you are writing 1 mark, under 1 point, what you have to write it, you have to write the audit procedure. What is an audit procedure? I'll be explaining it to you in detail in the coming slides before we move on to the question. But yes, what is an audit procedure? Audit procedure, just simply, if I am inspecting, if I am recalculating something, then it is an audit procedure that I am performing. What all procedures are there, I'll be covering it in the coming slides. But yeah, next what we have to do is, whatever audit procedure I am gonna undertake, for instance, I am recalculating. Okay, so what am I recalculating? How am I recalculating? I have to write that. So how, which document I am seeing, which ledger account I am seeing, we have to write that. And lastly, why am I recalculating? For instance, I am recalculating in order to test the accuracy and completeness of the transactions. So that is the reason most of the students fail to write the reason of performing a particular substantive procedure, and they end up losing zero point 0.5 mark per question, or sorry, per point. Okay. So make sure you write it. Okay. So in the coming sessions, I'll be explaining it to you how do you have to use these three in order to write any answer. Okay. So I know some of the things might not be as clear, because auditing is such a paper. It's like a story, I would say. This paper is such that at the end only everything would make sense. In the starting, you will be able to understand the concepts, the questions, but as and when we progress, the syllabus, the paper is quite interesting if you are able to understand it. Only and only if you are attending the classes regularly, only if you are um understanding the requirement, then only you'll be able to understand it. Okay. So this is it for today's session. If you have anything, if you have any questions, you can ask me now under the chat box. And if there is anything that you want me to add, or if there's anything that is not clear to you, you can just provide me your feedback, and I'll be more than happy to look into that. Okay. So yeah, thank you guys. This is it for today, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Bye bye.